Good morning. So today we're going to look at graphing some basic polar equations, and this will finish up your homework 1. So some polar equations. Some basic polar equations, they're expressed in terms of r and theta. So that's how you know that it's going to be a polar equation. So some examples of polar equations are r equals 2, r equals 2 sine theta, and then r equals even like a -2 cosecant theta. So those are all examples of polar equations. Okay, so a simple polar equation, we'll look at simple ones first. So if I had r equals 2, all right, so that means that your radius is going to be 2. So on here, you've got 1, so your whole circle here will be a 2. So, I don't have a pen here. So this is going to be the graph of your polar equation because this is a radius of a 2. Okay. If you had an r equals a 4.5, then that would mean, draw them light, how about that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to go in between 4 and 5. So I'm going to draw it real dark, and it'll be, the radius here will be 4.5, in between the 4 and the 5. All right, what about if you had theta equals pi over 3? So if it's theta equals pi over 3, so where is pi over 3? So we've got pi over 6, pi over 4, and about, this is a pi over 3. So pi over 3 is going to go through the origin all the way through to the other side. So a negative and positive here. Okay. All right, so what about if it was negative 7 pi over 6? So a negative 7 pi over 6, so this would be a negative pi over 6. Okay, a negative 5 pi over 6, and then up here would be a negative 7 pi over 6, right? Because we would open this way. But remember, we got to go all the way through the axis here. Okay, all right, so let's look at some basic ones. Some other basic ones. So this is with, if we have like sine or cosine. So I'm going to do that one where we had r equals 2 sine of theta. So basically I want to plug in theta values and find the r value. Okay, so we'll plug in 0, pi over 6, pi over 3, pi over 2. We'll go all the way around the unit circle. So pi over 2, then what will come next? 2 pi over 3. Pi, 5 pi over 6. And then I'll be back at pi. And then 7 pi over 6. 4 pi over 3. 3 pi over 2. 5 pi over 3. Alright. And then 11 pi over 6. Alright. So, if I plug in a 0 here, sine of 0, okay, will just be a 0. So 0, 0 is going to be here. Pi over 6, if I plug a pi over 6 in here, so sine of pi over 6 is a, what, 1/2, right? Sine of pi over 6. So make sure that your calculator is in degree or radian mode, I'm sorry. And so then sine of pi, or we really need to know our unit circle. Can't find pi here because and then multiply that times 2. So you get a 1 here. Pi over 3, so that's going to be square root of 3 over 2, which is just going to be a square root of a 3. Okay. Alright, so then your theta value here, you're going to have a pi over 6. So you're going to be at 1. So I'm going to draw these. I'm going to draw these real light here. So that's a radius of a 1. This is a radius of a 2. That'll be a radius of a 3. So on radius 1, we're going to be at pi over 6. So about right there. Okay, square root of a 3. So square root of a 3 is going to be in between where? So it's between 1 and 2. So at pi over 3, we will be in between 1 and 2. So pi over 3 is about right here. So it's about like that. Okay. Right, pi over 2. Pi over 2, so if I plug in sine of pi over 2, so sine of pi over 2 is going to be a 1. A 1 times 2 is going to be a 2. So we are going to be up here. Remember, this is pi over 2. This is pi. This is 3 pi over 2. That's 0. Alright, so then at 2 pi over 3, so if I say sine of 2 pi over 3, that's still going to be a square root of 3 over 2, which is going to be just a square root of a 3. Sine of 5 pi over 6 is going to be a 1/2, which is just going to be a 1. Alright, so then we're going to kind of go back down. So at 2 pi over 3, so we'll be about right here. Pi over 3 will be at 1. So at pi, we'll be at 0, right? So at pi, we'll be back down here at 0. At 7 pi over 6, so 7 pi over 6, I'm going to be at a -1. So remember what that means is that I'm going to graph 1, right? Radius of a 1. (4 pi over 3), I'm going to be at a negative square root of a 3. 3 pi over 2. I'm going to be at a -2. And 5 pi over 3, I'm going to be at a negative square root of a 3 and a -1. So remember, when we have a negative value, we plot the 1, right? And then we add pi to this, okay? So we'll say 1 and then 7 pi over 6 plus a pi. So that's 6 pi over 6. So that's basically we're back right here, right? Okay. So basically you are going to have this little bitty circle. It's a terrible graph of that. But you're going to have that little teeny tiny circle. Okay, so that's what I want you to do to graph these basic ones. You can use your calculator to check and see. There is a mode on here that says polar right here. So polar. So if you go down, select enter here, then you could say to sine and then put your theta in there. And then graph, and there is your graph there of your polar. See, looks like the same function, right? Alright, so that's how you graph your basic one. So now you can finish up your homework 1. Alright, y'all have a good day.